Hi, it's Mike from Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and on today's video we're going to take a look at a mini PC, which you can see here, which at the moment is at an absolutely ridiculous price. Now this video is going to be to the point, and I will go through some of the pros and the cons of purchasing this particular unit. I will get out of the way straight away. One of the pros at the moment is the price. Now this has an extraordinary discount on it over at amazon.co.uk currently, potentially elsewhere as well, but at the moment it seems it's amazon.co.uk. And this normally retails for £279.99. But there are some crazy offers on at the moment where you get a £60 off voucher, and then there's an additional 25 or 40% discount. It seems to change daily, although I have looked today and at the moment it's around about £166. Yesterday I think it was about 170, so it is changing, it is very much in flux. And it appears that this offer is only on for a very limited amount of days, possibly by the end of this week. So I will be doing this video, filming it today, and also the video will be posted today as well, straight out to everybody. So hopefully it will be in time for some of you to pick up this extraordinary bargain. So this is the NipoGi, I think I've pronounced that correctly. It's NipoGi, NipoGi, whatever, I'm not entirely sure. This is their AM16 mini PC. Comes with 512 gigabytes of NVMe storage. That's PCIe Express Gen3 by 4. Also comes with 16 gigs of DDR4 3200 in a dual channel configuration, so 2 sticks of 8 gigs. Also comes with a Ryzen Pro 5675U and also incorporates AMD's Vega 7 graphics. So this actually is a bit of a powerhouse. So the actual kind of base clocks of this 6-core 12-thread CPU is 2.3 or 2.4 gigahertz, but it can boost up to a whopping 4.3 or 4.4 as I've seen in some of my testing, and all of that with a kind of, well, a strange TDP. It actually states on the website it's 15 watts. I've actually seen it at 25 watts normally, and it does boost up to around about 45 watts. So it's still very, very efficient for doing what it needs to do, which is excellent. Obviously, if you want something cheap and cheerful, just to run some web pages or to, I don't know, maybe you're a day trader and you want to hook up a bunch of monitors, then potentially you can do that. It will support up to 3 monitors straight out of the box, which is brilliant. Especially again, if you are using a multiple monitor setup, or really whatever you want to use. If you want to use it on a single standalone monitor, it's absolutely fine with that as well. So this thing is kind of basically nuts for the money. It really is. At the full retail price, $279.99, there's other competition, I'll be honest. So you would want to shop around and see what the best deals are. You do find with a lot of these kind of mini PCs and the various brands out there, there's often special offers on here, there and everywhere. But this is one which really did kind of strike me as being, well, kind of mad. So yeah, it's one of those unmissable deals in my opinion. Although having said that, in a week's time, it's going to be kind of the Prime Day or Prime Week as it's now generally seen as. So potentially there might even be more bargains, but don't worry. I'll put some affiliated links in the video description so you can check out this one, see what the local price is for you, see what discounts are on, and potentially you might want to pick one of these up, because I think again, for the money, it's absolutely incredible value for money. You would normally get the N150 and maybe 8 gigs of RAM and possibly 256 gigs of storage for this kind of discounted price, around about the sort of 150 to 170 pounds mark, possibly a little bit lower. But yeah, to get double the storage, double the RAM, and also a decent AMD processor, I think again is stellar value for money. So we're gonna go through now, take a look at what we get actually included in the box, take a look at the unit itself. I've got some product shots as well internally, so you can see what's going on inside. It actually has 2 M.2 slots, so again, a little bit of option for upgradability, and also 2 RAM slots. So if you want to upgrade the RAM to maybe 32 gigs or even 64 gigs at a later date, you can do that very easily. Only needs 8 screws, so there's 4 on the bottom, and you take those pads off, 4 screws there. When you take the bottom casing off, there's a further 4 screws for the 2.5-inch drive bay. Remove that, and then you've got full access to the system, and you can pull the motherboard and all of it out of the case to gain full access to things like the CPU cooler should you ever need to clean it. So nice and easy to access, which is also brilliant for these mini PCs, which is yeah, a little bit easier than it is to get into a Mac Mini, of which this does share a lot of design characteristics. It's very compact, very small, although at the moment the Mac Mini is considerably more expensive, albeit slightly more powerful, but comes with less storage as default. So yeah, that's kind of worrying. Anyway, let's take a look at what we get. So obviously you get the PC itself. We'll take a look at the ports very shortly. You get a cloverleaf style power cable. You also get a power supply with a barrel jack, and this one is rated up to about 98 watts. So potentially a little bit of room for overclocking if you wanted to on this thing. The BIOS is a little bit mediocre, if I'm honest. It's like the old school BIOS, so you can go in, it's a blue screen, all white text, etc. And you can go in and make some changes, etc. You can actually change the allocated RAM for the onboard Vega 7 graphics. Again, I'd probably leave it set to auto, and for all the testing I've done in this video, it's completely at its out of the box settings, other than I have taken the operating system, nuked it completely, done a fresh installation with 24H2, and also done all the updates and drivers, etc., which we'll talk about a little bit more later on. So other things in the box, there are a bunch of screws and also some M.2 drive holders, etc. So that's all good. And also there's a couple of screws for the actual VESA mount. So this comes included. So if you want to attach this to the back of a monitor for a very, very sleek looking little desk setup, you can do. That is included also. There's also a user guide and manual. Also on the actual machine itself, there are a bunch of QR codes, so you can scan those and you can go into a chat on WhatsApp with the manufacturer. So if you get any problems or you got any questions, maybe you want to do a BIOS update or just want some drivers or whatever it might be, then there is a QR code there. I have actually scanned that about 20 minutes ago, and I've not had a reply as of yet. So by the time this video goes out, hopefully I've had a reply, and I'll put that in the comment section or actually in the video description to let you know how I got on with their customer support team. Also included, I should mention as well, there is an included HDMI cable. It's a pretty short one, about 80 centimeters, I would guess. It's not very big at all, but it's useful to have an HDMI connection because there are multiple HDMI connections on this little box. So let's take a look at the connectivity. So on the front, you've got a USB Type-C. Now that is a dual mode one, so you can actually use that as a display output with an HDMI adapter on there. So if you want to, that is your third output, or alternatively, it's just a USB-C port for transferring data or plugging in peripherals. Next to that, you've got two USB 3 ports, so these are 5 gigabit per second. You also got a combination headphone jack and microphone jack. Next to that, there is a very small little reset. So if you want to do a factory reset, factory defaults back on the BIOS, etc., you can do that. And also there's a power button, which is illuminated with a white LED. On the sides, you've got some ventilation, and the same on the other side as well, more ventilation on there. If we take a look at the bottom, you've got the QR code telling you more about the device itself and also the specification, model numbers, etc. And even more ventilation, which is great. Also rubberized feet to keep it sturdy and stable on your desk. When it comes to the rear I/O, so you've got the output at the top, so that is the fan outlet for letting the hot air out. Next to that, there is also a Kensington lock slot. So if you're putting this into an environment where you want to keep it locked down, maybe some kind of kiosk or cafe, then you can put a Kensington lock on there so people don't steal it, which is awesome. You also got two USB 2.0 ports on the back, so for your keyboard and mouse, that type of thing, or maybe a wireless dongle. Then you've got your two HDMI ports, so both of those will support 4K 60 Hz. So again, depending on what you want to do, it will potentially support more than that. So if you go to your display, you can probably get it up to about 144, but your mileage may vary. I haven't had time to verify that yet, but potentially you can get it to higher anyway if you want to do some high refresh browsing. Maybe you won't be doing high refresh gaming, but maybe high refresh browsing if you like that slicker feel within Windows. Next up, you've got your LAN port, so that is a gigabit LAN, so nothing out of the ordinary there. And also then you've got your DC jack input for power. Like I said, taking it apart is very simple. So 4 screws on the bottom underneath those rubber feet. You can take the bottom casing off and then you can see inside, and there is the 2.5-inch hard drive base. If you want to increase your storage, you can do it. Like I said, this one comes with 512 gigabytes storage on an NVMe. The NVMe in this one specifically is a Biwin drive. It's the CE480V6D10H-512G. That is one of Biwin's OEM drives. And actually, I must say, when it came to doing some testing on this out of the box, I used the stock installation, which is Windows 11 Home. Unfortunately, this particular model came with a very old version of Windows on it, which was the 22H2. So that is a good almost 3 years old now. So they really do need to look into that. But I think a lot of people, especially if you're buying these mini PCs, well, there's 2 ways you can go. You can either go to Windows Update and go through the laborious task of updating Windows step by step until it's on the very latest version, Or alternatively, you can do what I did, and that is to grab yourselves a USB installer stick, stick it in and just do a fresh install. Now I will say, in the interest of full disclosure, I have done a full virus scan on this as it came out of the box using, I think it was Sophos, and the scan was absolutely clean. So if you've got any concerns about it coming with any kind of dodgy spyware or malware or rootkits or anything like that, it has been scanned and it came back with a clean bill of health. So no concerns there, which I know for some people, potentially you do get a little bit wary about these boxes and where they come from. I will say as well, the Windows installation, when it came to the first turn on, it asked me for the username, account, etc., the kind of the usual Windows setup. So it hasn't been kind of pre-installed with a load of bloat or a specific user account. So you can go in and set in all that up for yourselves, should you wish to. It did have a very minimal install set. The only thing which I saw which was additional to the base Windows image, it did have Chrome pre-installed on it, which I think is actually a pretty decent idea because not everybody likes to use Edge. So having the Chrome browser installed as a default is good. And again, I did go into the Chrome browser, check to see if there's any add-ons or anything like that going on, and it looked like a completely base Chrome installation. So again, no security worries there. Right, so going back to what I was talking about with the PCI Express drive. So again, this is the Biwin drive, PCI Express Gen 3 by 4, and it's using TLC RAM. It is a DRAM-less version, so no cache on board. So the speeds aren't absolutely stellar. And actually that was something which I was finding. I didn't do a speed test when I first got it. At least I don't remember doing it. And at least if I did, I didn't record it. So those results are kind of, you can forget that. But after doing the fresh installation of Windows 11 Home, which I did using the latest version, some of the drivers were missing, so potentially for some of you that may be a problem. I actually went over and used the Snappy Driver Origin, which is great for getting your drivers. We've actually done a video on that, which I'll link in the video description. So yeah, I'm taking my own advice here. So I used Snappy Driver and it found everything and installed it all, so there was no problems at all. I actually picked up the Ethernet straight away anyway. It was just a couple of odd things like the Wi-Fi and I think possibly the Bluetooth, which weren't installed. So it went through, installed all that, and yep, I seemed like I was on to a winner. Everything seemed okay, although it did seem a little bit slow transferring some of my game library from Steam, which surprised me. I thought this would do quite well, being PCI Express Gen 3 by 4. So at that point, I then got out the Crystal Disk software and did a test, and I was dumbfounded. The actual speeds were not what I was expecting at all. So this should, in theory, do somewhere around about the kind of 3 gig read and about 1700 to 1000 write. If I get that around the right way. It'll be on the screen anyway, you can actually see it. But yeah, it was getting like 300 megabytes write speed, which is very, very wrong. So I went into Windows Update just to check, because I thought maybe it's got the wrong drivers for the chipset, which it appeared was the case. So Snappy Driver Origin failed in that respect. So it did install a driver, but not necessarily the correct one. So performance was severely reduced. So I let Windows Update do an update, installed the correct drivers, and then we got some pretty stellar speeds. So it was around about 3,300 megabytes per second on the read and about 2,700 on the write, which is basically exactly where this drive should be. And in fact, it is slightly faster than what is specified on their own website for this particular drive, and also on Amazon for this particular drive as well. So yeah, got some pretty decent improvements in performance there. When it comes to the RAM actually was from Lexar, so 2 sticks of Lexar RAM. Again, you've probably seen some close-ups of that, and I'll put them on the screen for you now. So again, nice and easy to upgrade should you wish to. 2 slots, dual channel support, which is excellent. Again, the Ryzens do love that dual channel memory, so that is excellent. Also, when it comes to gaming prowess, now you're probably wondering with this, the Vega 7, it's not the greatest. Now, I have done some gaming at 1080p, low settings, with no real scaling or anything, and I've just done a couple of games, so the sort of things that you'd normally play on this kind of mini PC. So I've gone and used CS2, I've also gone and tried Wreckfest and also Rocket League, which are kind of the titles that I would use on it, so I figured it would be a good test, and we'll take a quick look at those now. So I think we'll take a look in slightly alphabetical order. Start off with CS2. Now CS2, I'll be honest with you, was pretty awful. It still gets to around about 60 frames per second, and it is actually playable. There is a little bit of occasional lag, and again, this is the out-of-the-box settings. So if you wanted to, you can go into the BIOS and set it into kind of like gaming mode, which allocates more of your RAM to the actual graphics chipset, which you may or may not want to do. Again, this I just wanted to test straight out of the box. You're getting around about 60 frames per second, a little bit of kind of bouncing around at times, and it was absolutely playable. Although unfortunately I did have my capture card set to 30 FPS, so there's some horrible tearing because we're running at around about 60 FPS, but you can get an idea of the gameplay. It wasn't too bad at all, and again, if you're buying a very inexpensive box for about £170, I think this is more than what you'd expect. So CS2 1080p, definitely playable, but obviously do temper your expectations. You're probably not going to be overly competitive, but certainly it is playable. Next up, we've got something which was a little bit easier to run, although still at lower settings. Now this is Rocket League, and again, I played this and it was actually a pretty decent experience. And actually we won the match in the end, it was okay. Again, this is a very cheap PC, so you can't expect too much from it. It isn't a gaming PC, they don't market it as a gaming PC. In fact, they market this as being a kind of a professional workbox for maybe basically browser tabs and that kind of thing, Excel spreadsheets, emails, that sort of stuff. So gaming isn't what this is focused at, but potentially you can still do a little bit of gaming should you want to. And again, with this Rocket League, it was absolutely fine. Again, we're looking around about sort of 60 FPS, a little bit over at times, but this is absolutely fine for this type of PC. And last of all, we had a look at Wreckfest. Now actually, I was surprised, Wreckfest, even at the lowest settings, still looks pretty nice and plays pretty decently. So we're looking at somewhere between the sort of 40 to 60 FPS, which again is completely playable if you think consoles are often locked to 30 FPS for some titles. So this is exceeding that in some instances. Again, this is only 1080p, so don't get too excited, but certainly I did enjoy myself. It was playable, and I actually managed to come in first and score a win, so it isn't actually hampering my performance. It could look nicer and it could play faster, but other than that, it was absolutely fine. What I will say is, depending on your setup, now actually in the BIOS for this, which I'll potentially get some screenshots of this so you can see it, maybe in a follow-up video possibly, but the BIOS settings, there's not really a great deal you can do, but there is options for the fan settings, so you can go in and customize the fan profile. So if you want it to be a little bit louder and kick in a little bit earlier to keep it cool, so it'll boost for longer, then potentially you can do. I've left it again at the stock settings, so bizarrely for some reason it seems basically silent up to somewhere in around the kind of 70 degrees mark. When it gets to 70 degrees on the CPU, the fan kicks in and it can get a little bit distracting. We did do some Cinebench testing, which you're probably seeing on the screen here, and with Cinebench running, it quickly got to around about 95 C. Again, this is actually in a pretty warm environment. This is about 30 degrees Celsius at times in this room, so do take that into consideration. It's a lot warmer here than it would normally be, so maybe it would drop down a few degrees in cooler environments, or if you're in an air-conditioned office, then you're probably never going to hear the fan come on at all. And when it comes to the Cinebench, obviously you can see the score on the screen there, and I think it roughly equates to something along the lines of maybe a desktop Ryzen 1700X, which is arguably a very old processor, but considering the size of this and also the price of it, the price of the Ryzen 1700X when it came out was about 3 times the cost of this entire PC. So we have come quite a long way, and I think the Ryzen Pro processors from AMD, especially this one, the 5675U, which beats basically all of the 55 series in terms of raw horsepower, I think it does actually pretty good. And also I did some other synthetic tests as well, using TimeSpy, and also going in taking a look at that. Again, we're not going to get fantastic numbers here, but I've got TimeSpy, I'll show you that. Also, we've got Firestrike, so I'll quickly pop up the scores for that as well, if that is something you're concerned with. Ultimately, I think, like I said, this is one of those things where it's just ridiculously cheap for the money. We're on about £170 here at the time of recording, here in the UK from Amazon.co.uk. I think it's absolutely cracking value for money. I've really enjoyed myself using this, and best of all, obviously the Windows installation, it comes with a licensed version of Windows 11 Home. Yes, it wasn't updated, which is yeah, a little bit of a bad thing, but again, I guess when these were actually built, which is a reasonably oldish design now, probably about 2 years old, so it's probably got the base installation on them, but I think for the money, you really can't go wrong. I enjoyed myself. Again, if you're someone who just wants to have internet access or to be able to browse the internet or do your work from a small monitor setup or a very compact space, you just want to stick this onto the back of your monitor, I think it's fantastic. Very low wattage, very low energy, very low noise, and it comes with a decent spec out of the box with that 512 of storage and 16 gigs of dual channel DDR4 RAM, 3200. I think it's absolutely cracking. So hopefully you've got a general gist of what I'm trying to portray in this video, even if some of my testing has been a little bit rushed. At the moment, I think this is excellent value for money. It really is. If you want to pick one up, links will be in the video description. Obviously, they are going to be affiliated links as well, so we do get a very small commission, and it will be small because this is really cost effective. And alternatively, if you want to, you can send it back within 30 days because it's from Amazon, etc. If you don't like it, then send it back. But I think for the money, you genuinely can't go wrong. If I haven't stated that enough, at the full retail price, $279.99, I would look elsewhere, to be completely honest with you. But with these significant discounts, it is actually really hard to pass this up, even if it's just a backup PC should your main PC fail. Anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed this video. If you have, smash the like button. If you want to see more content of this on a daily basis, maybe consider hitting subscribe and also that chime notification. That way you'll be notified of future video releases. But for now, I've been Mike. This is Mike's Unboxing Reviews and How To, and hopefully we'll catch you in the very next video. Thanks for watching.